Well, push record. Oh.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our virtual youth climate summit. We're probably going to wait just another minute for everyone to kind of file in, and then we'll get started. Yeah, and so please welcome yourself or introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're joining us today from. And so this month is Earth Month, so we're excited to be able to host this event today. It's so nice to see everyone in the chat. If you want to, you can put your name and where you're joining from. And we're really excited to see people coming from all over the world to join us today. I see someone is from Canada and there are some from Michigan, Arizona, and India even. All right, thank you for joining. And if you'd like, you can introduce yourself in the chat. I see a lot of introductions. And so the summit will last from now until about 1 p.m. Pacific time. If you're on Eastern time like I am, that is 4 p.m. And so we are really excited as a committee, the Chief Science Officer's CSO for the World Committee, to host and organize this event. All right, I think it is officially past 10 a.m. Pacific time, so we will start now. So as I previously said, this event our virtual Youth Climate Summit is hosted by the Chief Science Officers organizations, CSOs for the World Focus Committee, and I'll introduce the Chief Science Officers program a little more in detail later. But we will hope that you guys will all be inspired by the speakers today to pursue climate action projects in your communities and be a part of the youth force combating climate change. And so my name is Dalia, and I am one of the Chief Science Officers. I'm the lead of the CSOs for the World Focus Committee, and I'm really excited to be here today. And so once again, welcome everyone from all over the world to come together to this event. So the Chief Science Officers program, I'm sure you saw it in our flyers, and previously I stated, we are a program of 6th to 12th graders who are STEM ambassadors identified by their peers in their communities, and we demonstrate an interest in STEM, innovation, and advocacy. And so the goals of the CSO program are to cultivate a network of diverse STEM leaders, foster communication and collaboration between CSOs, and enrich school STEM culture and career awareness, and to amplify the student voice in STEM conversations in the local community. And so I am really excited to be a part of this CSO program because it's opened a lot of opportunities like this current virtual Youth Climate Summit. And I think that it's allowed me to have the opportunity to do so many things and be able to meet so many new people like all of you today. So I'll go a little bit into why we're hosting this climate summit today. So why does climate action matter? So in today's world, climate action is very important because as we all know, climate change causes detrimental environmental and social problems. These include wildfires, drought, increased dangerous weather events for people living in coastal areas. There's increased flooding, and even as it gets worse, there's going to be food shortages, water scarcity, and more problems. And so these all affect the world and society itself. So we want to be able to do our best in trying to change this. So we need to act in order to avoid irreversible damage to the planet and mitigate the impacts of global warming. And so you may think that what you may be able to do isn't enough to really help this problem. It may seem bigger than you are, but actually in reality, the small actions and changes make a big impact on the problem. And so together, if everyone in the world is doing small things in their local community or in their own household, together that makes a really big change on the world. So we want everyone to be inspired to just pick at least one thing up today and maybe do, change one thing about their lifestyle. And that would be a really big change to the world if everyone could do that. And so on the agenda today, we have 3 sessions and they'll be back to back, but we'll give you guys some breathing room, a little break between each session so that you can get up, do a little bit of movement, grab a snack. I know you might be, in the middle of eating time for some of the time zones. So definitely get up, get a snack, and then we'll get right back to it. So right now we will be starting our youth action panel, and the presenters are Amanda and Antonia from Mobile Climate Science Labs. And then after that, we will at 11 o'clock, and this is in Pacific time, we will have our creative action workshop with Adrian, Sarachana, and Dilraba from Arizona State University. And they'll be talking about, art as a medium for combating climate change. And then finally, we will end off our climate summit with a case study on car idling with Ms. Frank and Ms. Meyer from the Maricopa Air Quality Department. So we're really excited to have these 3 sessions and all of these fabulous presenters on today. And guys will definitely get to meet them and hear more from them as we go on. So I think I'm passing this off to CSO Sanvi from India.
Hi all, I'm CSO Sanvi, and as Delia mentioned, today's youth are tomorrow's change makers. Small changes in our communities can lead to bigger changes globally. With that being said, let's begin our first session of the day, the Youth Action Panel. Here you will learn about projects and ideas that you all can do in your communities to make an impact on climate change. Today we have two amazing speakers, Amanda and Antonia from Mobile Climate Science Labs, who are going to motivate and inspire all of us with their wonderful projects. Amanda and Antonia are both leaders in Mobile Climate Science Labs. And in addition to that, Antonia is a co-founder of Climate Club DC. The three main projects or ideas that we'll be focusing on today is making buildings everywhere more energy efficient using an innovative STEM technique pioneered by Amanda and Antonia's teams. We will also be discussing about young people as effective and inspiring educators in climate science. And lastly, we'll also be talking about DEI and social justice through climate action. So do take some notes and think of ideas that you can implement in your community.
So I'm Jim, and I'm going to be more playing images and fill in for a little bit of some of Amanda's presentation later on. And Tony, I just wanted you to know I'm ready to go with images if
Sure
you're ready.
thing. Yeah, and thank you guys. Thank you, Sanvi. Amanda, let me know when you want to introduce yourself and chime in, or if you want to do that right now.
Introduce myself. So hi everyone, my name is Amanda. A little bit about me. I'm a high school senior, a graduating high school senior, and I'm going to be the first person in my family to go to college, and I will be attending Stanford University this fall. Some quick things to note about me, or I'll just say a little bit, but like growing up especially as a young Vietnamese woman of color, I felt like I didn't have a voice to like talk about certain issues that I'm quite passionate about. But joining or volunteering with Mobile Climate Science Labs have really enabled me to speak up on climate issues, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, well, that's like congrats on getting into Stanford, by the way, because that's amazing, first of all. And second of all, a little bit about me. I'm Antonia. I'm from Washington, D.C. I am a high school sophomore. And yeah, I'm not into college yet, but hopefully in a few years, maybe even Stanford, but not to delay any further. I'm gonna jump right in, if that's okay with you, Jim, to our first section, which is who we are, just like a brief introduction about what Mobile Climate Science Labs does and why we think our work is important and what impact we have. So if you have the images up, there you go. Okay, so Mobile Climate Science Labs is a multi-generational organization based in California and the Washington, D.C. metro area where I live, including Virginia and Maryland. We're also a part of Climate Club DC, which is in multiple schools. So I'm Antonia, and I'm a high school student at the Madeira School in McLean, Virginia. I already introduced myself mainly, but I'm really interested in climate action, and I really think that it's so important that students, especially women, are empowered to speak up about climate change. And also with us today, as you may have heard, is Jim Callahan. So Jim is a co-founder of Mobile Climate Science Labs, specializing in climate education and action for the last 24 years. And I'm really glad that we are further connecting with the Chief Science Office program, because our program recently presented together as part of the National Science Foundation sponsored STEM for All Video Showcase Theme of the Month. So we're not just eager to talk with you, but we would love to work together. So if we can support each other's works, that would really make us really happy. So I'd like to also mention a third organization that we are members of, as this is important in what we do. So we think it might be too for the chief science officers. If this interests you, we can help you be part of it as well. So we are part of the Climate Literacy and Energy Awareness Network, usually just known as the CLEAN Network. That means we work with over 800 organizations, including the major science-based government agencies, departments of science and communications at universities across the US, schools, and many others working in education and action on climate change. As far as mobile climate science labs and Climate Club DC, here is what we do in regards to specifically our work. So let me just get this pulled up. So there are 3 ways we're with you as leaders in taking action on climate change. All 3 forms are STEM-based and science-based, which we think is really important for not only building change makers of tomorrow, but building scientists of tomorrow, especially because women, and especially women of color, are really underrepresented in STEM fields. So number 1, we're making buildings more energy efficient, focusing on lighting systems, reducing the carbon footprints of the buildings by using infrared cameras, which can actually track which types of lighting are emitting light that we can't see. And the cameras that we use also are very good at teaching others, especially younger kids that go to my school and go to schools around the region, about like carbon footprints and about the electromagnetic light spectrum. Very cool. So number 2 is through education, especially with hands-on STEM labs and demonstration. We are really popular exhibitors and presenters at large festivals, science festivals, specifically community events, conferences, and summits, as well as schools and online. The first people that I presented to were 6th graders at my school when I was in 8th grade. So that was a really fun experience. And it was really great to see them engaging with climate action, just like I did when I was their age. And so number 3 would be advancing social justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion, because genuinely one of the most important things to have represented in a STEM field, especially in a STEM field like, climate science, that requires also a certain amount of activism and speaking out and getting work done. It is really important that we have so many different perspectives, not just that of old white men and that of people who are currently, that are currently taking up a lot of space in the climate change community. And we think it's really important that we have different voices, different people, that we give everybody an opportunity to learn and to grow and to speak out on what they think is important. And
Antonia, I'm going to switch over on screen share. So if it looks a little bit funny here, I'm getting ready to go over to what we know is topic 3. Okay, so just know I'm getting that set up.
Sure. And Amanda, if you want to join me in anything, like, you can just pop in, don't even worry. But yeah, I'm about to talk about our energy surveys at a very cool building. So if you want to just pop in, let me know. If you do not, I can go on. Just let me know. The video is starting. Okay, cool. Okay, so video is on. And Amanda, at any point you can chime in, but so what we are doing here is we're working to make the buildings of America more energy efficient. So to demonstrate one of the ways that we take climate action, I'd like to share with you all an example by looking at a particular building that most of us probably are familiar with, the United States Capitol building, as we are based in Washington, D.C. And this is also the place that the CSO program knows well, I've heard. And so how can a multi-generational team where young people are the leaders manage to make the US Capitol more energy efficient? How can we reduce the carbon footprint of the United States Capitol itself? So to expand the power of what we are trying, or what we are about to show, how can we together do at just about any building anywhere in the world what we can do at the US Capitol? Locate exactly where lighting is efficient and where energy is being wasted. for just about anyone, this is how the United States Capitol looks in the daytime, right there. And this is how the US Capitol looks at night. And can you tell just by looking at it where it is efficient and where energy is being wasted due to energy efficient lighting? In fact, you can, just as we can if you have innovative science tools. So shortwave infrared cameras are the cameras that we use, which we've developed, that are not expensive to replicate. So for instance, when looking at the front of the east side, we can see that the lights at the front entrance are efficient LED lights. So right where Jim is moving his cursor, because you can't see the lights at all. And if a light fixture is bright in shortwave infrared, it is not efficient. Where the lighting is bright and visible light but dark in the infrared, then the lighting is efficient. So as you can see, the stuff in the dome, not very great, very, very bad actually. So we can actually spot individual rooms too, where the lights are still wasteful and incandescent, like these rooms, as you can see here. These are very, very specific rooms that you can really pinpoint where the energy efficiency lies. And as you can see, it lies in many places, unfortunately, too many places. But with a related technique, we can share images that reveal where lighting is fluorescent. So at the very top above the Capitol Dome are a group of 4 lights known as the session or Thales lights. So let me see if Jim's there. Yeah, right there. That Thales, right where those arrows were pointing. These lights are turned on to indicate that at least one chamber of Congress is in session. So whether the Senate or the House, day or night, whenever these lights are on, we can take photos or videos that instantly reveal that these lights have yet to be upgraded from inefficient incandescent lighting to be efficient LED lights. These are very powerful scientific tools pioneered by young people just like you, just like us, young people who we represent, who are proud to work alongside the Chief Science Officers program. And this is an example of a science tool that we can use together. We also, not included in the text, we have a type of camera called spectral diffraction grating. If you're wondering what the rainbow, the cool little rainbow camera photos are, that basically takes the light from the visible part of the spectrum, and it just like makes it like it's a prism. So if you can see red, yellow, orange, oh my God, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, the normal colors, but you can't see anything else, then you're good. You got a good LED light. But if you can see that little pink part right before the red, that is the infrared light that we are trying to get out of buildings because they are extremely energy inefficient. As we can't, as humans see this light, it being emitted is kind of useless, but it still takes up a lot of energy to do. And this is exactly why we want to change it. So I'm getting into a little bit, I got into a little bit of this already, but just a little bit more on how the surveys work, like the logistics and stuff. So let's go to our camera lab to see how we're able to do this. How do our surveys work? In the lab, we can look directly at different light bulbs plainly and up close. We know where each type is, and we can turn on each one and we can turn off each one as we want to. So that way we get to know how each type behaves in front of our infrared cameras as well as how they look to our eyes. So the image on the top is what we would usually just see with our eyes. On the bottom is a view through one of our shortwave infrared cameras. And as you can see, the visible light right there, once it's turned on under the infrared camera, only one of those 2 light bulbs is glowing, and the one that is glowing is the inefficient incandescent light / fluorescent light, because sometimes it is a little bit hard to tell whether something is incandescent or fluorescent, but our way of knowing is whether something like makes, like that right there in that video, if something just lights up an entire room, then it's probably incandescent if it's in the shortwave infrared camera. So LED lights are the efficient ones. So they waste very little energy producing visible light, but not wasted short wavelength infrared light. On the other hand, the incandescent bulbs, which I got into a little bit, generate lots of shortwave light. So they're very inefficient technology and waste lots of energy. And when we add a fluorescent light bulb, we see that they produce a fair amount of shortwave infrared. Fluorescent lights are less efficient than LEDs, but they're better than incandescents. However, when we turn on one of the incandescent bulbs, we see that they are very inefficient. So like very, 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 it's kind of bad, you guys. Incandescents are very bright in shortwave infrared. They are very wasteful. And it's kind of a wonder that they still exist in buildings today. A lot of buildings have moved to fluorescent, which is better, but you know, incandescents still exist in very surprising places. And I honestly could not tell you why they do, because they waste a lot more money in the long term and in the short term. But yet they still exist, and those are our priority in getting out, along with fluorescence. So, but a common characteristic of inefficient lighting is that it wastes electricity, making invisible light. Like we can't see it, so there's no point in having it. And our cameras use that fact to locate the lights that aren't efficient. The short wavelength infrared light gives away all their locations anywhere at any time of day. And that is how we locate them, and we go to the people that need to be notified about it, and we remove them, hopefully, or we get it changed. With the National Smithsonian Museum, we went there and we did a survey. Actually, I think this is dipping into Jim's section a little bit, but you'll see what happens there. I guess I want to leave you on a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Well, in fact, please step in, and Amanda, you please step in as well. I was making sure we had this one covered. Natural History Museum, the National Natural History Museum, Washington, D.C., is just one of the many places, as you can see, students have been surveying. We surveyed the entire museum, and you get a sense of how we're able to make effective change. After we surveyed the museum, we found the places that we thought that they most should change quickly. We went to the directors of the museum and showed them much of what we found in different places. And the first place that we brought up to them, we went back 3 weeks later after we had met with them, and they had changed every one of the light bulbs. That's how easy it was for them to do that when it was pointed out, and they knew that students were paying attention to it, and they could see these images where we could go through all of the museum and find this. So that's an example of the power that we were able to change the Smithsonian Museum to be more efficient more quickly with our work. Now, when we go with this, what we find, and by the way, what we're sharing is these are techniques that can be used by CSOs. You can work with us. Even if you don't want to use what we use, that's great. There's plenty of things to do. We want to inspire you that there is many ways that young people and people working together, multi-generational, can make change on climate change, and using science, using STEM. It is not always that people will change right away, and I'll go into that in a minute. But Natural History Museum was so impressed by our work that they've invited Antonia and Luca and everybody in Washington, D.C. and our team to be presenters on the floor of the museum to the public in this gigantic museum about climate change, about taking action. And we have an invitation for the next year and a half to be able to present at the Smithsonian Museums. And that's something we would love to share with the CSO program. If any individual CSOs or the program overall, the work we're doing, if that is something that the CSO program could use to its advantage, we would be very happy to see that happen. I'm going to go into another one of the, there's the way in which we communicate. And this is a question we're going to have for you in a little bit. We'd like to learn from how you communicate and how you learn to communicate. So we're going to look about some of that. Now, to do that, I'm going to go back to, let's see. One of the ways we communicate, as we just said, is we speak to the officials and to the experts, the professionals who have to take care of lighting, engineers, architects, heads of museums, the electricians. We are dealing with professionals. So you as a high school student or as an undergraduate or a middle school student, this is empowering you to talk to them about actual science change, okay? And we can compare that to other ways in which other folks tend to communicate, but that's something that we do. Another way we are in the schools, we go to these large public events, which we'll look at in a little bit, but then there's also the online videos, which is how we got to know the CSO program. So I'm going to switch over back again here, and hopefully this one's going to work, because if you see it's a little glitchy, I was having even more problem with this technique just before we got on, and hopefully, though, that's going to be cleared up here. Let's see if we can get this going here. And what is going on with this? Okay, let's try this here. And bear with me. Whoop, 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 whoop.
The narrative. All is hopeless when it comes to climate change. Specifically, action in Washington, D.C. is being successfully blocked by the fossil fuel industry at every turn. Well, students like me have a different story to tell. We are taking action on climate change using STEM. Our methods are being duplicated by young people, families, and professionals across the United States. Climate Club DC and Mobile Climate Science Labs are working to make Washington, D.C. and Maryland more energy efficient, proving that mass-scale community and national-level climate action is possible and is effective. We are working with the Smithsonian National Museums. We are assisting departments of the Architect of the Capitol to make the Library of Congress and the buildings on Capitol Hill more energy efficient. My team has pioneered an innovative technique to quickly and accurately pinpoint energy waste. We students use handheld camcorders which dramatically image in shortwave infrared light. This allows us to map the locations of both efficient and inefficient light fixture technology. Our energy efficiency surveys are invaluable to institutions working to reduce their carbon footprint. So, how is it possible for middle and high school students to know STEM so well, in particular with regard to energy and climate change? The answer is our schools and our teachers use the resources of CLEAN, the Climate Literacy and Energy Awareness Network. Our teachers love CLEAN as their source for reputable, vetted resources on climate change and energy. The resource library.
Yeah, we had just like a little plug for CLEAN at the end. Jim?
It looks like maybe technical difficulties on his side. So do you guys want to, fill in the time or continue on?
Oh, sure. Well, at any point, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And Jim, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry. Thank you for speaking up that I wasn't coming through. Am I coming through okay now? Thanks. Okay. The sound in the video, did that come through when the video was playing?
Yeah.
Okay. We do want to go over to question and answer and discussion pretty quickly here. I want to mention that when we go to all these museums, and others can do it too, these cameras are reputable and so on, they don't always say yes, and we also get problems. So we actually are learning what's holding up, in the case of the federal government of the United States, why, although it's policy to make change for energy efficiency, when it doesn't happen, why it doesn't happen. And we find that out, we talk with them, and that allows us to go up even higher up into the government, higher up to agencies and the Department of Energy, and bring up how there's major problems in these different departments. So the idea is we're talking to the parts of the government that are meant to follow policy, that are meant to apply science and engineering, and helping them move ahead. And I want to compare that a little bit of how often young people are kept on where they can only communicate. So I think in the interest of keeping it moving, I was going to go more into the way we do education. Maybe we can do that later. Antonia, we can get into DEI and things, but I think I want to make sure that we have time for questions and answer a little bit of things. How about this one of jumping also ahead on this one is there's also the importance of, especially for young people, to be recognized for our work, to be taken seriously, like CSO and Mobile Climate Science Labs was by the National Science Foundation in the STEM for All video showcase when we had that. But what I'd like to do is maybe there's one of Antonia. I'm going to play some of the things on the AGU conference that we can see. This is something also we can share with you all. Is if I bring this up here, here we go. Do you, Antonia, would you might want to say a little bit on AGU conference and what we can share with CSO on that?
Sure. And then we can answer some questions. But AGU, that was actually my poster, the one that we just left, the light blue one. But AGU, so that is the American Geophysical Union. They hold a fall conference annually, and they have a program called Bright Stars that really any student can apply for. And our group participates in Bright Stars each year. And so what that entails is basically, that's mine again. We present our findings of some research that we have done related to, our work in climate change and activism and education. We present on a variety of different topics that we do during the year. It's not just a great way to get our vision and message out there, but it's a great way for students like for me to learn how to condense and present scientific information in a cohesive and an engaging way. I really like doing it. It can be a lot of work, but honestly, it's so worth it because we get to present in front of other groups like ours and in front of people who are from the American Geophysical Union. And we basically make posters like these about the things that we do. So like we talk more on one about how we do our work, like what types of cameras we have and what types of strategies we use for discussing with the just people that need to be notified about lighting. I did mine on the Capitol building and I work around that specifically, but people in California, they do a lot of work surrounding with NASA Ames Center and the Shabbat Space Center. And honestly, yeah, we do our presentations on a variety of different topics, and it's just really, really fun all around.
By the way, I'm happy to see one of our other members, Luca Renzel, is actually helping in the chat a little thing. It's his birthday, so I mean, we didn't expect him to come today. In fact, I was trying to say it's your birthday. You have to come. So he's helping out. Should we move to questions of maybe taking some of the questions in the chat, or people speak up? We want it to be interactive. We're not afraid of hearing from you. We want to hear from you.
Sure, yeah, I can go ahead and answer the first question in the chat that I think was there, which was who's a mentor of yours? I can just really quickly answer that. I think a couple people have definitely been big mentors to me. One of them has been slightly parasocial, but I'm a really big fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's not like a real mentor because I don't know him, but he's definitely very inspiring to me. I really want to be an astronomer, astrophysicist, along with studying like environmental science and climate change. But a real mentor for me has been my dad. He's worked in the climate field for a long time. Just if you know him, his name is Joe Rome, but he did a lot of work around climate advocacy, and it was really inspiring to see him he talks to a lot of like the coal industry, people like that, and he really doesn't take any crap from anyone. And that's honestly really inspiring to me, as well as my science teacher, Liz, who is not here today, but she's also part of our network at Mobile Climate Science Labs. She was my middle school science teacher. And honestly, like, she really inspired me to pursue a career in STEM. And I'm really grateful for her and all that she's taught me. And Luca, let me know if you can always unmute and answer some questions too.
And we're also seeing a question from John suggesting getting involved in one. But Luca, please indicate if any ones we're missing.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for all the happy birthday messages in the chat. That was very is very interesting. I personally, if I was going to answer the mentor question, I would also say Liz Bullock. I go to the same school that Antonia is alumni of. She was an amazing science teacher. She inspired me to get into the field. I really didn't know much about climate change before I came to Lowell School, but she taught me so much about the climate, and she made it like a fun subject for all of us. And I feel like that was a very important part of how I got into Climate Club in the first place, which it was an extracurricular at Lowell. And at first I thought it was going to be some sort of they were organizing bake sales or doing something small that could help. And I was all for that, but I was not expecting to be doing so much work. And I think that that's what's so empowering about the club. And if Antonia and Jim, you want to answer some other questions, I can answer them in the chat as well.
Sure. I saw one on let me look at it. What is one challenge that you face as a youth besides convincing adults that you can? Honestly, convincing adults that you can is like 90% of the battle. But after we start presenting, usually they'll take us seriously. But other than that, I guess it's kind of hard to balance school with Mobile Climate Science Lab sometimes. It does take extra work, but it's nothing that we can't do. And honestly, it's great preparation for later in life, in college and in normal careers where there will be a lot more work than high school. And it's definitely something that has taught me better time management, better sleep schedules, and it is really invaluable, the lessons that time management can teach you when you are thrown into a situation where you have a lot more work than just homework. So yeah.
If I might, I'm seeing several comments that just is exactly what we were looking for, is because we came to work with CSO. We came to help and to listen and to learn from you. So when seeing things, how to expand and do things, we want to work with CSOs, whether they be individuals or cabinets or the entire organization. We want to help. We want to work together on it, and through it, we'll learn together. So it could be specifically on the kind of projects that we do, but it can be generally. And one of the things that we are trying to spread is that it is possible to actually work on the scientific level at our level. We don't just have to ask people. We can get into that in the communication question. I have a little bit of things, but you could contact us individually as your local group, as CSO, talking the CSO program. We want to work along with you. And that was inviting you in to know about the Clean Network too, of the contacts, the connections we have. We want to share with you. We really are impressed by the CSO program. So if you see something that you like or want to do it, just let's keep talking, okay?
Very much so. And just to answer the most recent question, I'm proud to be one of Sanvi's teachers. We love teachers. And I think that especially around the issue of climate change, there's a lot of intersectionality between different topics and subjects that relate to climate change as well. Like, for instance, in history, the Industrial Revolution had a lot to do with climate change. In English, there's a lot of literature that discusses climate change or discusses like a dystopian future that, might have climate change kind of go haywire. there's just a lot of ways that you can incorporate education surrounding climate change into lessons that, maybe you got to be a little creative sometimes. But honestly, I think that another way that you can support students in their climate activism is just being there to talk to them, being there to give them the resources that you have as a teacher, put them in touch with other teachers, other networks of people that definitely guiding them and helping them, navigate speaking with other adults and things like that. Yeah. Oh, and I noticed, Sanvi, you had your hand up. If you want to ask a question, please go ahead.
Yeah, so how did you guys like develop your idea? Obviously, it's so creative. How was the journey? Like, there must have been a lot of hurdles and a lot of barriers because we are all youth, so people don't really sometimes take us seriously.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if Jim wants to answer that too, because I think he knows more about where the idea for the infrared cameras came from.
Well, let's see. Okay, and by the way, what I'm trying to also respond in the chat a bit is the use of these cameras is not something that we're selling. It's not something that we're controlling. If you're interested, it is not hard to replicate these what we're doing. So they're sharing how you can either buy them or make them, or we lend them to you. We want to encourage that, especially with a program like CSO. So and how we use them. This is not something we're selling. This is something that we want to spread. How we did this was multi-generational. I did a lot of the coming up with the idea, but I never could have gotten anywhere without young people like Antonia and Amanda and Luca and many others. One is my background is an electrical engineer. I'm a retired electrical engineer. So I've done a lot of work on energy and climate change in my career. And I learned a lot and learned on science in UC Berkeley and all kinds of things. But also what we didn't get to, because I wanted to move it along to this, is a lot of how we teach at science festivals and big events. And we have big labs that you can do on climate change, really fun labs, and a lot of them use infrared cameras. And we've learned a lot how to use them. And one of the things I discovered with students is, these can be used to tell what kind of lights there are. I mean, that was something that nobody had told me. I didn't learn in my field, but these cameras can discover instantly what kind of lighting there is. And we said, this is really cool. And we started to refine and work on how the cameras could be inexpensive and work better. But it was always with young people. It was always our team. How do they work, and how do we make them work, and how do we make them fun too? Because we always want to make what we're doing a blast to do, something that's really cool. So maybe if that gives an idea, it came from teaching climate science and doing energy, but we innovated. This is a new technique our team came up with, and we'd be glad to have you work side by side with CSO.
And I think CSOs would love to have like a collaboration with you as well. So we should definitely talk about that after the meeting. I think I'll send a follow-up email about it. That would be awesome.
Fantastic. May I ask a question of the CSOs? So your team individually or whatever, there's a couple questions, but I talk too much, so I want to ask this one. One of the big challenges that we know is how do young people get the experience and get over stage fright of being presenters, okay? Because we're being asked to be at places like this a lot. We are being given the place to talk on the floor of the Natural History Museum. We're at conferences, but we have a lot more students than we have people who are like Antonia who are good at speaking. How do you deal with that? How do you get experience and help each other and train and get things to be presenters? That's something we want to spread. We want to be better at having more presenters. How does CSO do that? Something we want to learn from you.
I think a lot of times CSOs we get the opportunity and like the space to speak without a lot of times we have someone who kind of encourages us to do it. And once we're maybe put on the spot to do it, we have, the opportunity, and we know that it's a safe space and that we can make mistakes presenting, and that we'll still have the support of the other CSOs. And it's a really great support network. Like, I think the first time I was speaking to the CSOs, I was really nervous as well. And I might have messed up a few times, but at the end, all I heard were congratulations and encouragements and support. And I think that's the kind of network that CSOs provides that allows a lot of us to grow our confidence as public speakers. And I think like CSO Aldo and CSO Sanvi, who might not be like native English speakers, they're really, really great public speakers. And I think they might have more to add to that. So I don't know if they want to speak to it as well.
I just
Yeah,
want to highlight that Delia also speaks Mandarin and joined our Mandarin call to practice her Mandarin. So we love to provide as many opportunities. They just have to say yes. And we love to use the private chat feature to coach along the way. Sanvi, go ahead.
So when I first joined the CSO program, I was kind of concerned because there wasn't really anyone else from India. So I didn't really know how that would work out. But then after having so many like online meetings and so many opportunities, I definitely have got like tons of public speaking opportunities, although I'm still a first year. We have CSO Saturdays every month, which is a really good activity. And then we also have action plans that we're supposed to, or basically goals that we're supposed to achieve. And that's where I feel that a lot of CSOs try to take up public speaking opportunities, which they can use. For example, like my goal for this year was conducting demonstrations in underprivileged public schools. And that worked out really well because I was able to exercise my abilities, and the children enjoyed too.
Antonia and Luca and Amanda, I think we're getting what we wanted. We wanted to learn from CSOs, and I know I'm learning a lot right now. This is cool. May I ask one more thing? Can any of you comment on how if in climate change and people taking action on climate change, there is where most organizations that involve young people, what they do, and we think it's important, and this is it, but you'll notice that we're doing something a little bit different. Most climate action is, in the United States at least, is oriented toward talking to politicians. It's talking to government officials about what they plan to do, what they promise to do. That's most of it. And what the other people do is, or a lot of people do, is they protest, or they hold signs, or they go to rallies. Now, I personally think both of those are very important. But you'll notice that what we're doing is actual science. We're actually talking to scientists and being part of the change, making the change, not asking somebody else to do it. And that's something I saw about the CSO program, is it's about chief science officers, not chief advocacy officers only, right? I mean, so just kind of get your reaction to that. We're not trying to say don't do the other first two, but is there anything of being able to get practice doing science and engineering now?
Yeah, so one part of the CSO program is that students have to do a STEM action plan in their community. So for example, this would be like, I've done like panels with guest speakers on STEM careers, and I've done a recycling club at my school. And so those are kind of the activities that aren't just talking to officials and like legislators, who would be able to make policy changes, but talking to the community and pushing projects in the community that would inspire other members of the community, my peers, to also involve themselves in projects.
I want to jump in. I think another great way when we're talking about, how do we take action beyond advocacy and communication and education, which are all super important pieces of it, like Mr. Callahan said, you can find local science near you to help contribute to climate science research. So if you literally go on Google and search community science near me or citizen science near me, if you go to iNaturalist, the app, there's so many different ways that you can help collect data to, give evidence for some of those folks who maybe are like, we don't need to worry about this. You can be like, well, hey, I helped collect data on bees. And let me tell you, there's not as many bees here as there were 5 years ago. Like, we should talk about that. So highly recommend for anyone who wants to get involved. Citizen and community science projects are an awesome way to take direct action with science.
Luca, how are we doing we don't want anybody who has anything to say to be shut up. Everybody who's saying everything is fantastic. So I'm going to shut up. But if are there things that we're missing from the questions and the comments?
I think that there is one question that I didn't get to answer. Let me find it really quickly. Mariana asks, do you think to expand your project to other places or countries? And yes, we've not necessarily countries yet, although that's possible. We've expanded to other places across the country. Originally, Mobile Climate Science Labs was a program in California, and we were spread. Some of the teachers at Lowell School got in contact with Jim and his program in Mobile Climate Science Labs, and that was where Climate Club DC was born. And since then, Jim can talk more about it, but I believe we've been expanding and incorporating other programs from around the country and helping them and, advancing their work. And of course, I don't know all the specifics, but Jim can talk more about it. But we recently had a meeting with some wonderful folks in Florida, and I believe we've been in contact with people from other states as well. And I think that Jim can talk more about that, but I can answer some of the other questions that are popping in the chat right now.
Yeah. What I can say is, so please, again, we don't want to be like we're saying that what we're doing is the most important thing. But this technique of being able to make buildings more energy efficient, to do the science and do that can go anywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world there are buildings, everywhere there's lighting, and everywhere these cameras work the same. This would not be hard to get the cameras into India. There would be no trouble. It would be as easy to get them into Canada or India or Colombia as they are 50 miles away from us. It's just sending them to them, and we can share online. So these all can be done. One of the organizations, again, we cut short because this discussion is more important than just us presenting more, is all these organizations that we do work with that we want to bring toward CSO. Girl Scouts of America. The Girl Scouts of America, gigantic organization, is getting that climate change is probably the most important subject to the Girl Scouts right now, and they see it for a long time. We do their presentations they have a convention now on climate change, and they're adopting this technique. So if the Girl Scouts are going to do it, it's just like the CSO is even more made for it because it is so focused on science and communicating science and making change. So this is quite expandable. Everything is quite expandable. And as we can do here now, one thing COVID got us is that we can communicate internationally online very effectively now. So we can share videos and techniques. And if this helps encourage other science-based or STEM-based action on climate change, that's another, we don't want to all do these infrared cameras, but these infrared cameras, anybody who's interested, we can be working on that together.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, to build on what Luca is saying too in the chat, about some of our bigger challenges, um, sometimes, yeah, sometimes museums are a little bit unopen to change because, also sorry that my camera's off. It is lunchtime-ish where I'm at, so I'm kind of snacking. But yeah, it's just in general, museums, the directors can be like, wow, well, your kids, what the hell are you talking about? Or they can say things like, well, we appreciate your offer, but I think we're good, or just generally kind of deny us or are less open to change, not because we're kids, but because we are talking about like climate change or changing their way that they're making money. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard, but we always have ways to get past that, get around that, especially by going places elsewhere. I mean, there's quite literally um an a surplus of museums in DC for us to work with. And in California, we always have California. If one museum does not work in DC, or if one place doesn't work in California, there are just so many places that we can go, so many people that are open to talk to us. And honestly, um, we do our work there. Sometimes we go back to the place that denied us, tell them what we just did, and they're like, whoa, well, we're a little bit more open to working with you now. So yeah, that's honestly what we do. And usually it works a surprising amount of times, because of the sheer amount of museums in DC and places in California and around communities in the US. So yeah.
Just one thing, Jim, I just wanted to add one thing to that. Yeah, a lot of times in DC especially, it is possible for us to, instead of going to a different museum, we can also move up in like the layers of bureaucracy involved, because like the museums in DC are owned by the Smithsonian, which is owned by the federal government and all that. And so we've found some of the museums that have said, well, we thank you for your time, but we're all right. We found that there are some systematic issues with light bulbs and buying them, and sometimes they buy light bulbs 3 years in advance, which is just not right. They buy light bulbs 3 years in advance before they use them, so they have this surplus of incandescent lights in their storerooms, which makes no sense. So we have gone to we are in the process of moving up in the bureaucracy, talking to the Smithsonian organization, talking to the federal government to see if we can change those plans in the first place.
By the way, quickly, when CSO comes to DC, you're coming to our home, right? So when guests come to your home, you invite them in and you take them around and you help them, and when you come to DC again, you're coming to Climate Club DC's home. So we can go to the Capitol, or we can go to the museums, or we can meet with each other. So it's very real. I just wanted to get that in, but what Luca said is right on. We're really able. We're taking the challenges away to go up even higher into government and make bigger changes. Should we be respectful? We have to be respectful of the whole event here. This is fantastic, but I see it's coming up on the first hour. I don't want this to end, but I don't want to get in the way of the next thing.
Yeah, I wish we had more time for today's discussion, but we have our next session coming up. So I think we're going to do a 5-minute stretch break. I know, like Antonia needed a snack, and I'm sure everyone else needs a break. So how about we reconvene at about 11:06 a.m. So 5 minutes, and we will come back to our creative action workshop.
Yeah.
All right, so now we will have CSO Gloria to introduce our next session.
Hello, I am CSO Gloria, and right now we are going to be doing our 11 a.m. creative action workshop. The goal of this session will be how you'll learn how you can use art as a medium for combating climate change. The presenters are Adrian, Sai Archana, and Dilraba. So about these presenters, Adrienne is an artist and professor of expanded arts at School of Art, Arizona State University. She has been written about and published in many places and is the creative producer of Turn It Around, flashcards for education futures. Sayarchana is the TIA Digital Engagement Coordinator. She has been involved in the TIA project from the very beginning. Dilarava is a PhD in global education student at ASU who has been presenting the project and was part of the team that created our policy. However, Dilarava was not able to make it today, but we are still very grateful and thankful for her work.
Great. Thank you, Gloria. As Gloria said, my name's Adrienne Yannick. I'm a professor, and we're going to introduce this project. I guess I first just want to thank Delia and the whole CSO team for inviting us to join you today. I heard a little bit of the end of the last conversation, and I'm really excited about what you all are doing. And since our project is also one that's led and organized by young people, I'm really glad that you found your way to it. And Sayarchana is here to also co-produce. It's a little noisy where I am right now. It just all of a sudden started to be very noisy, so I apologize for that. Just as like a icebreaker, just kind of to get to know who else is in the room or where you are. I put something in the chat. If you could just all respond in the chat, just with some little piece of information about, generally where you are. I'm in Phoenix, and if there's something natural within your, wow, very noisy, within your view right now. So I'm gonna mute myself and see what happens in the chat. And then Sayarchana, you can take it over. Okay.
Hi everyone, so Adrienne will be sharing her screen soon, and I'll be talking a little bit about the Turnaround Cards project. Okay, perfect. Can everyone see the screen properly, or yeah?
Yes.
Okay, amazing. So hi everyone, my name is Sayarchana Dura, and I currently work as the Digital Engagement Lead for Turn It Around Cards, flashcards for education futures. In this movement, we have used art as a form of social change, uniting world leaders, artists, young activists, educators, corporate executives, and people from every sector of society across the world to address climate change. So we're so excited to talk to you all today about the role of art in creating social change. We'll be talking a little bit about what our project has done so far with using artwork, and then we will also be taking you all through an interactive exercise using art as a tool for social change. Next slide. So this project started 2 years ago in 2021, where a group of faculty members at Arizona State University realized that we are living with two very important problems in the world. The first one is education is deeply impacted by the climate crisis, and a lot of education systems throughout the world lack climate education, and being able to educate young people about climate change is so essential and so important in order to prepare them for the climate disasters that are taking place in the world. Additionally, young people have systemically been excluded from decision-making spaces about their futures, which is heartbreaking because a lot of people, like politicians and world leaders, are making decisions about the future of the world without including the very people who will be living those futures in the room. And our project wanted to address both of those two problems at the same time. Next slide. So we decided to turn it around and address both of these problems in a very creative way. In 2021, we asked young people around the world to send us artwork and written pieces depicting what changes they envision in climate education and in environmental policy. We gathered around 1,000 submissions from around 60 countries and 5 continents throughout the world, asking young people to use art as a creative expression tool to describe to world leaders and educators about what types of changes they want to see in climate spaces. Next step, next slide. From this collection, we developed a collection of cards in the form of a card deck. So these flashcards communicate to policymakers and educators about climate facts and what young people feel about climate change, what changes they want to see around climate realms and policy and education. And they also serve as a tool to express the visions of young people around climate change. So these tools have been used in policy realms and in education realms to both educate young people about climate change and also educate policymakers about the visions young people have around climate policy. These cards have been placed in classrooms across the world. They've also been placed in the hands of world leaders at different climate change events and negotiations. So they've served as an education tool in a very dynamic way, being used in policy and in education. Next slide. So the process of creating this project was very unique because we were using art as a tool to communicate about the visions young people have around climate change. So in the summer of 2021, we gathered hundreds of submissions. We literally stuck them on the walls of Arizona State University's Teachers Academy, and PhD students went through all the pieces of artwork and writing to analyze them. Because in our project, we view art as research, and we view research as art. We both of them in the same way. And we wanted to share young visions in different forms to engage as many people as possible. That's why, in addition to creating the card deck with pieces of artwork and writing, we also developed a policy report where we carefully analyzed all the artwork and text submissions to understand what policy suggestions they have for world leaders and how we could use these pieces of artwork to directly implicate policy. Next slide. So in this policy report, we identified 4 paradigms we believe need to be turned around in order to truly address the 2 problems we addressed earlier: the problem of excluding young people from climate spaces and the problem of climate education lacking across curriculums across the world. So in our policy report, we identified 4 turns: an intergenerational turn, a decolonial turn, a methodological turn, and a pedagogical turn, in order to transform humanity's current approach towards climate change. The first turn is the pedagogical turn. This turn addresses the fact that our education systems deeply lack climate education. We talked about the importance of opening up classrooms to talk about ecological issues in the world and also educate young people not just about the problems of climate change, but also the potential solutions and how young people can actively shape a world that is better for them. Next slide. We also identified a decolonial turn. This turn acknowledges the importance and the deep connection between climate justice and climate education, and the importance of acknowledging that we live in a lot of toxic cycles in this world, and the importance of preparing young people and educating them about Indigenous knowledge and knowledge that is not just centered on global North dialogue, but also knowledge that educates young people about global South traditions, non-Western wisdom, and Indigenous knowledge. So in our project, we try to address social justice in everything that we do, because it's really important for us to acknowledge social justice in connection to climate change. Next slide. We also talked about a methodological turn. In this turn, we talk about the importance of finding creative ways to solve the climate crisis. And we talked about the role of artwork and creative expression in creating change in the world and inspiring dialogue and transformation across different systems in the world. As you can see in the left photo, we have a picture of a mandala. And what's so exciting is in about a few minutes, we'll be taking you all through an exercise to build your own mandalas. Next slide. We also talked about the importance of having an intergenerational turn and how it's important that we engage young people in decision-making spaces that pertain to their futures and empower young people to take action for the climate crisis. So those are the 4 turns we acknowledged in the policy report. From the hours and hours we spent analyzing the pieces of artwork from young people throughout the world to understand what types of changes they wanted to communicate to policymakers and how policymakers can address those changes. Next slide. So beyond just creating a card deck and a policy report, our team wanted to find creative ways to use art to inspire change and transformation. So I'm going to quickly take you through a few examples of how we have used art as a tool for transformation. Next slide. So our team has traveled to several national and international conferences, including in Egypt and Scotland, in Idaho, to share the research results of this project in front of audiences of diverse climate stakeholders, including leaders, educators, activists, corporate executives, and scientists. Next slide. We also have shared the card decks and policy reports with many world leaders, including United Nations officials, ministers of education, and members of parliament. Some of these leaders that we have shared the project with include Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, John Kerry, the US climate envoy that works with President Biden in developing international climate policies, Patricia Espinosa, the 2021 climate leader for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary of the United Nations. So we've worked to share these visions of young people with the world leaders at these very important climate decision-making spaces so that they understand the ideas and hopes and dreams that young people have around climate policy. Next slide. Also last year, we had an exhibit at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris during their United Nations Transforming Education Pre-Summit. So as you can see, right by the Eiffel Tower, the UNESCO headquarters displayed pieces of artwork and writing from people across the world from our project. And ministers of education walked by this exhibit as they entered the United Nations UNESCO headquarters. And these pieces of the exhibit called to world leaders to develop more empathy about the climate crisis and how the climate crisis disproportionately impacts people throughout the world, especially in the global south and indigenous communities. These pieces of artwork also called to world leaders to deeply consider and reflect on how their curriculums and how their ministers and ministries of education can include more climate change aspects in them to prepare young people for the climate crisis and build young leaders throughout the world. Next slide. We also had a Day March last year where we had people in Arizona State University hold up blown up portions of the cards. So they marched around the university and we met with the university's president to call to the president to implement these turns that we covered in the PowerPoint, including the intergenerational turns, that more people are heard and seen and young people can actively work with administration to shape their climate education. Next slide. Our team also traveled to New York where we displayed posters at the New York City Climate March, and we also had a panel with ministers of education at Columbia University where we displayed pieces of artwork and writing from our project with them. And we also traveled on the New York City subway where we hung up these big posters around the subway and were able to spark dialogue with people there about the project. Next slide. Additionally, we've been going into classrooms and doing activities with K through 12 students, and we've been helping them create artwork and writing to imagine their climate futures and actively design their curriculum. So one example is we went into a classroom at Arizona and we asked students to build a quilt compiled of artwork about the climate crisis. And this quilt depicted hope and the role of imagination and joy in the climate movement. So we helped create this activity with these young students and have been going into classrooms throughout the nation to do that with young people. Next slide. So our project is a continuing movement where throughout the past couple of years, we've been asking people to send us artwork and writing about their hopes, feelings, and dreams about the climate crisis and what changes they want to see from policymakers and educators. So we've been keeping our submissions ongoing. So if you're interested in submitting a piece of art or writing about the climate crisis, here's how to do it. And I'll also be sending the link in the chat box. Next slide. We also are having a presence on social media. We have an Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and TikTok account. So if you want to follow us along there and see our global journey in traveling the world to share this project with world leaders, going into classrooms to do activities with young students and finding creative ways to connect art and activism, definitely check out our social media pages and also our website. And additionally, if you want to collaborate, we also have our email address below if you want to send us any collaboration requests. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to hand it off to Adrienne to do an interactive activity with all of you with artwork and activism.
Thanks so much, Sayarchana. And I just wanted to add that the energy of the project has really happened in part because of including engaging young people from the very, very beginning. Young people were involved not just in making the artwork, but also reviewing the artwork. Sayarchana was the assistant producer of the project and brought a bunch of young climate leaders together to review all the submissions and then rank them. And that was part of the whole review process. And then also one of the things that we found, which was really important as we were passing these around or engaging teachers about the project, was that there were not many tools for classroom teachers, especially some in science, but for any non-science classroom, there wasn't many. And so we've really gone about expanding the project. And on the site, there's also classroom lesson plans and things that are going up on the site. It's also recently been translated into Arabic, and there's a Chinese translation that's coming on shortly. And we've partnered with ASEAN universities and young people across Asia to do a whole new collection. So there's a lot of possibilities if you think of anything or in your networks that you might want to engage. So what I wanted to do right now is just take a very short period of time to lead us in some of the prompts. So there's a few art prompts, there's a few writing prompts, and just take maybe about 15 minutes. Sayarchana is going to play a little music, and you can choose what prompt that you want to take on. And we're just going to take a little bit of time together and then use the last bit of time that we have to come back and share with each other what we came up with. So I'm going to, in the prompt, and I'll go over what I'll share there, but I'm going to paste a few of the prompts here. So the first prompt, and I'm not sure if you'll have enough time, but maybe if you have something handy, is really to create a mandala. This can be with refuse. I know I might overturn my recycling bin, and this is just creating like a beautiful pattern, with whatever you have. If you want to go outside and there's any flowers around or leaves that have fallen or anything, but you can make a beautiful pattern really with anything. And there's some examples from people all over the world who have done that. Another option, if you are a person who can draw, or even if you want to do it in stick figures or whatever, is just picturing a step or action you could take to contribute to a livable future on Earth. So just drawing that out, sketching that out. We're just going to take 15 minutes so that we don't have a tremendous amount of time. And then there's a few written prompts if you prefer in writing, because writing is expressive. And as you could see on the cards, on the back of the cards, there's these text prompts, and we got those from also all over the world. So thinking about what do we need to learn to ensure we and our planet survive and thrive. And also I was thinking that sharing a lesson you've learned from your ancestors that you want to make sure and pass on to future generations. Or, you know, if there is something that you want to make sure that leaders know or even remember about themselves as youth, or some aspect of who they are when they make decisions about your future. So we're just going to take 15 minutes. If you want to show your screen what you're doing, you can. Sayarchana is going to play a little music, and we'll come back and be ready to share at just 11:45. So Sayarchana, do you have some music to share?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sounds great. So we'll meet back here at about 11:45 to share our turn it around examples, drawings, art, writing pieces.
So gathering back, anyone that wants to turn on their camera. It was nice to see where some of you are dialing in from all over the world. That's so exciting. So Archana, do you want to lead the share?
Yeah, welcome back everyone. I hope you had fun doing the artwork and writing exercise. We're about to pass over the microphone to all of you and kind of see what you've done in the past 15 minutes and have you all share either your artwork or your piece of writing that you created in the past 15 minutes. You can either share in the chat box or you can turn on your video camera and share with us the artwork you created.
I can actually go first. I did go ahead and emptied my recycling bin, which there wasn't much in there actually. But I made an odd mandala with some cans and just ripping up some cardboard in there. And it felt really good to do it. So just yeah, if you want to share anything also about, I know these are heavy topics, but if you wanted to also share anything, even if you don't want to share what you wrote or drew, if you want to share anything about how you felt in the process. So thanks, ES.
Hi everyone. I wanted to share this. It's made with rocks. I actually made this like 2 years ago, and I remembered I made it, but for something I did now, I did for the livable future. I think we can implement actions that even though are small can add up to be huge. Like for example, walking from time to time, implementing LED light bulbs, separating trash from recycling, and so many other things that we can do.
Thanks, Aldo. That's great.
Picking off of Aldo's, I actually attempted to draw small actions we can all take around the house. I'm not an artist, so be warned, but I drew it on the, here, let me turn my blur off, but I drew it on the back of like a piece of paper I'd been using for other purposes. And so here's a guy turning off the light. You know, we can conserve energy by, you know, turning off the light when we leave the room, or when it's sunny out, we don't need to really keep the lights on. Here is someone traveling, just traveling around using bicycles instead of cars or fossil fuel burning vehicles. And then this final one is a thermostat that's off, because we can conserve a lot of energy used to like burn for our household heating and AC by, you know, turning it off in the summers, turning it off when it's not, or like reducing how much you use in the winters when it's cold. You can use alternate heating methods, or, you know, blankets, layering up. And so that's why I wanted to kind of showcase small actions that households can take that would lead to big impacts if everyone took them.
Great. Thanks, Dahlia.
So, hi, I did, what do we need to learn to ensure we and our plants survive and thrive? So I'm gonna kind of summarize what I wrote, and I basically wrote, here, wait, real quick. So I wrote that in order for us to kind of survive and thrive, we need to learn more about how to better use the resources that are natural, like sun, like the solar, wind, and water. And also we need to learn kind of, are we ready for this? And can we take that next step and learn are we able to just leave fossil fuels behind and kind of take that next step for that? So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you. I see Rosalind's got something. Wow, 15 minutes. That's pretty impressive. Do you want to say anything about it?
Sure, thank you. I was just thinking back in my community, and I live in an area where it's actually owned by a company. So I live in a town, and it's next to, we're very interconnected with a mine. So we're a mining town, and everything is owned by the mine. And I thought about how much we could do in our own homes, and how much we can even talk to the people in charge of the mine, and how everything has kind of a step, and how there's different areas that we could do this kind of work in, that we could help for climate change, and, you know, doing recycling, using solar panels, research about it, and even bringing it to legislature and doing things like that. And it was just really interesting to think about how I can implement this in my community, and exactly what we can do to kind of jump off of this point to start getting more and more and snowball off this idea and off of these events and activities that we could be doing. So thank you. Yeah.
Oh, Adrian, I think you're on mute.
I just said that's great. Thank you, Rosalind. Thanks, Dahlia. Oh, I think we might have lost Sayarchana too somehow. Anyone else write anything? If it's in Spanish, that's fine too. Yeah, anything anybody wants to share. This is it's really inspiring. I think I always feel really inspired when I hear what people have reflected on.
So I'm prepping for a Passover Seder tonight, and I found this really cool Seder artwork that talked about, instead of like sort of the more traditional meanings of everything on the Seder plate, climate justice meanings. So I've started making, I don't have a fancy dish, so I'm using a paper plate that I'm writing on. But I'm actually just gonna, I'll share a picture for you guys that is a much nicer artwork. So these are some of the things on the Seder plate, and they sort of took two new meanings for them. So the matzah is liberation from fossil fuels. The maror, which is the bitter herbs, the horseradish, is based to honor grief. The egg, renewal and resistance. Normally it's just new life. The Harosa, which is like a sweet apple raisin cinnamon thing, solidarity and collective power. The spring greens are abundant ecosystems, and then the lamb shank is ancestral courage. So I just thought that was really cool. And then I also have an orange for LGBTQ solidarity and an acorn for indigenous acknowledgement. You can add anything you want to your Seder plate. It's pretty fun.
That's beautiful. Do you think that you'll share that with the other people at the Seder as well, or?
Yeah, I did a typo on this, but this will be at the center of the table.
Beautiful. That's so great. Anyone else want to share anything? Even just about how you felt, sort of taking a break, getting into another space?
I want to share something. I felt so good on the space, yeah, because I feel like so free that I can share whatever that I want, because like actually we don't have like these spaces on our normal life, or in my life I don't have like these spaces. So I feel so free, and I wanted to share my like drawing. It's like an artist picture,
Wow.
something that I can like think about the nature, and also like some things that we can do is recycle or support like some recycling campaigns or like this type of things. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Mariana. That was really beautiful. I love the way that she's just one with nature too. And that's a really important part of the project, is that we recognize that that we can really get pulled down, when we really start to just think and get frustrated. And I'm sure you all have felt ecological grief, this anticipatory grief, these other, as you actually watch and learn more, a lot of environmental scientists deal with burnout, and that's a really big thing. And artwork is not just, being an artist, but just getting yourself into that space, playing music, connecting with others, writing, sharing, as we saw just with the mandalas, just making a simple pattern, going out in nature and stopping when you're on a walk and making a simple pattern. It can really revive your spirit. And so it's a real tool, even if you're not an artist, to just really connect with your creativity. And as a few people have mentioned, that's a space where just even being able to imagine that we can make this transition, that's a very powerful thing, because we can really limit our imagination so many times. And it can also be a different way that we can connect with each other across language, across differences. If you're connecting with people, playing music with them, singing with them, making something with them. You saw the quilt that was made in the class. It can really help us connect in another way that helps bridge some of those differences. Great. Sarachana's back. Thank you. You missed some beautiful sharing. I see that we're almost finished. Does anyone have any questions about the project or anything else that they wanted to share? And I think we did have a teacher in the room, which is great. So Sayarchana, I think you made note of their contact, or they can contact us. So Sayarchana, do you want to say anything else about anything that we have coming up? Anything new on the horizon?
First of all, sorry everyone, my internet stopped working, so I'm joining on my phone. But we have a lot of exciting campaigns coming up. So I think sometime this year we'll be announcing a new campaign to engage young people. I can't explain too much because it's still in the works, but if you follow us on social media, you can stay up to date on what's happening with our campaigns. And additionally, we will continue doing workshops for young people throughout the world. So if anyone wants to get involved in organizing workshops like this with the turnaround cards, definitely let me know. If you want to send me a chat message, I would love to link you in with the team. We're looking to expand our team and involve more young people in this art movement. But yeah, we're super excited about 2023 and this year ahead. So yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much for coming and presenting and sharing all this beautiful artwork and this beautiful project. And I think it's really great that we're involving art in like climate change education, and especially providing something for teachers to have in the classrooms. All right, so if that is the end of our climate action workshop, let's take a 5-minute break. So around 3:03, we can come back and listen to our next session presented by Ms. Frank and Ms. Meyer from the Maricopa Air Quality Department. Thank you so much. Get started. So CSO Aldo will be introducing our next session.
Yeah, hi everyone, welcome back. So our next session is a case study on car idling. The goal is to participate in a case study on car idling in our communities and learn how to approach climate issues as a community leader. We have two presenters, Jenny Frank and Kelly Meyer. Jenny Frank is the Education Outreach Coordinator for the Maricopa County Air Quality Department. She has more than 20 years of experience teaching in both formal and non-formal classrooms. Jenny has developed nationally recognized air pollution education programs for Maricopa County. She believes empowering the next generation is key to improving air quality in Maricopa County. And Kelly Meyer is the Educational Outreach Associate for the Maricopa County Air Quality Department. She has 10 years of experience in public education, teaching both high school and middle school English. Kelly believes collaboration and education is key to improving the environment. Welcome, Ms. Kelly and Ms. Jenny. Thank you so much for being here. I'll let you take it away.
Okay, thank you so much for the introduction. I am going to go ahead and share my screen, so fingers crossed. All right, and hopefully everybody can see my screen. I'm going to put it into presenter mode. All right, so hopefully everybody can see that. Awesome. So we're really excited to be here today. We've done some work in the past. Our department has done some work in the past with the CSOs, and we know what a great organization this is. So we're really excited to be presenting to you today. To give you a little bit of background information on our department, we are the local governmental regulatory agency that ensures that the federal health standards in the Clean Air Act are achieved and maintained for the residents of Maricopa County. And that really includes the greater Phoenix metropolitan area, the city of Phoenix, as well as all of the satellite communities and suburbs that surround it. And it's a pretty large county. To do that, we regulate and permit stationary air pollution sources. So stationary businesses that put pollution into the air. We also inspect those businesses to ensure compliance. We manage the travel reduction program, and then I work in the outreach division, which is all about informing and educating students, educators, and community members on simple actions they can take to help reduce air pollution and improve our air quality. And many of the actions that we recommend will also benefit the climate because they will reduce greenhouse gases. So we're going to focus today on a specific program that Kelly and I have put together, reducing car idling at schools. And we developed it as a problem-based project that students can conduct in their own schools. We're going to walk you through that project, provide you with some materials if you're interested in taking this to your own classroom or your own school. And at the end, have a question and answer session. So let's start off with thinking about what problem-based learning is. If you could sum that up in one word, please share your ideas in the chat, and let's take a look and see what you guys think problem-based learning is. And Kelly, if you could monitor the chat, that would be great. All right,
I'll let you know what I see.
And if you want to use more than one word, that's okay too.
All right, we have the word investigation in there.
Awesome.
That it's real world, based in the real world. Discovery, that's a good word.
That's a great word. And you never know what you're going to discover once you start investigating a problem.
Yep. And an open-ended problem.
Yes.
Perfect.
And open-ended problems typically have multiple solutions. There's not necessarily one right answer to any of this. There can be multiple answers for these types of problems.
Absolutely. We have hands-on and problematics as well. So all really good responses. You guys could all be teachers.
So you guys hit up on a lot of the important points. Problem-based learning gives you authentic opportunities to apply content knowledge and develop important 21st century skills, as well as solve important problems in your community. So those 21st century skills, such as collaboration, critical thinking, communication, creativity. And it's also important to note that your teacher would act as a facilitator and provide any background information or appropriate scaffolding, but a problem-based learning project is really driven by the students. And Kelly's going to talk a little bit more about our specific problem-based learning project. So take it away, Kelly.
All right. Today, we're going to walk you through a problem-based learning student project guide that focuses on the problem of car idling at schools and the impact to student health. The project guide is organized into 4 phases. You can see them on the top there in the green circles. Introduce the problem, collect and analyze data, design your solution, and then implementing the solution. The guide provides a structured framework to help you get started, beginning with a project overview and a sample schedule to assist with time management. So you can see the sample schedule on the bottom. Our schedule has roughly 7 days, but you can, of course, always modify that to whatever your needs are.
So the first step is to really take a deep dive into the problem. You want to look and see what exactly is the problem, how much of a problem is it at our school before you can go any further. So phase 1 is all about introducing the problem. And I'm just kind of wondering if you guys want to give a show of hands or put a thumbs up or a yes into the chat. How many of you have observed a long line of idling cars during arrival and dismissal times at your school? So when parents are, I see a lot of hands going up, parents are dropping kids off in the morning and picking them up in the afternoon, and they may be sitting in a very long line. Many parents choose to drive their children to school, and of course that results in these long car lines with idling car engines during student arrival and dismissal times. And wait times can be anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes or longer. I know the elementary school where I taught, we would have people show up half an hour before dismissal to get that first spot in line, and they would be sitting there with their car engine on, going nowhere. So idling vehicles emit toxic air pollutants that may cause serious health effects, even including cancer, especially if you're exposed to that over a very long period of time. And the EPA has done monitoring at schools during dismissal times, and their monitoring has shown elevated levels of benzene, formaldehyde, acetaldehyde, and other air toxics during the afternoon hour, coinciding with parents picking up their children. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't really need a side order of benzene, formaldehyde, and acetaldehyde in my air when I'm breathing it in. I prefer nitrogen, oxygen, a little water vapor, things of that nature. I don't want all that other stuff. And it's important because children are especially sensitive to the damaging effects of air pollution because their lungs are still developing. They breathe faster, they take in more air, and if the air is polluted, they'll be taking in more pollution as well. So this particular project gives you an opportunity to take the lead in solving the car idling problem at your school. So you need to do a little bit of research, and in our guide, we've provided a problem statement that explains exactly what the problem is. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to provide links to our guide so that you can download it yourself. If you are interested in more information, you can read through it. We also have a video that we're going to show that will give you a little bit of information. So hopefully the video will run, sound will be there, fingers crossed. Here we go.
A city covered by a brown cloud. For years, Phoenix has failed to meet government health standards for air pollution. If you're exercising or working outdoors on a bad air day, you could be damaging your lungs. Staying healthy is about what you know, not just what you see. When you breathe, air travels into your lungs through a system of tiny tubes called bronchioles. These tubes carry air to small sacs that deliver oxygen to your bloodstream. In healthy lungs, the air flows freely. But when you breathe polluted air, dust particles can block the passageways, making your lungs less efficient. As dust builds up, your body produces mucus to trap it. But some of the smallest particles still manage to get into your blood and heart. The pollution you can see comes from a mixture of dust from unpaved roads, construction sites, vehicle exhaust, power plants, fireplaces, and other sources. There are two types of dust particles: coarse, which are about 1/7 the size of a strand of hair, and fine, which are smaller than a red blood cell. The coarse particles, known as PM10, accumulate in lung passages, forcing your body to work harder. You cough and wheeze as your lungs try to expel what you've inhaled. The fine dust particles, or PM2.5, can be even more dangerous. These tiny particles can travel deep into the lungs, bloodstream, and heart. They can contribute to a buildup in arteries, clogged blood vessels, and damaged lung tissue. Ozone, the pollution you can't see, has its own dangers by causing your lungs and airways to swell. It produces an effect almost like sunburn, inflaming and irritating the tissues. Even when the air is clear, it can still be harmful to kids. Children breathe air faster than adults, so they tend to inhale more pollution. Children exposed to dirty air for many years grow up with lungs that are less efficient than they should be. So how can you protect yourself? During high pollution alerts, people with heart or breathing ailments should stay indoors, and even healthy people should avoid too much outdoor exercise. And everyone can help reduce pollution by driving less, joining a carpool, and observing no burn days.
All right, so in addition to the background information, we also provided an activity to just kind of help you gain greater independence in the learning process. We have a link, which is in the guide, to sample video footage of a school drop-off and pickup area, and that was provided by the Maricopa County Office of the School Superintendent. And so you can use this background activity guide to use the data from the video to calculate the number of idling minutes per year at that particular school. And you'll also need to analyze similar data from your school during phase 2. So it's a little bit of a practice session for you.
Okay, so now we're into phase 2, which is collecting the data. It's divided into 2 parts: designing a data collection system, followed by collecting and actually analyzing the data. During this phase, you will design a data collection plan and then collect authentic data. I think some people said realistic or authentic when we had our warm-up at your school, most likely during the arrival and dismissal times. So as you begin to develop your data collection plans, you'll need to consider where, when, and how you will collect the data. We have a data collection plan template. We provided one for you to help you through the process. You can certainly use it or come up with your own if you would like. And you're also going to have to identify any safety considerations that should be encouraged, and you should ask for help if needed. So for example, if you're going to be out in a busy parking lot collecting a bunch of data, you just want to make sure everyone's safe and that you're not creating bigger problems, and just making sure that whatever you do, everyone's safety is kept in mind. So for collecting the data, to understand the scope of the problem, you need to consider 3 important questions. 1, does car idling occur at our school? And most people in the chat at the beginning said it does. Is it a significant problem? And 3, why do drivers idle their vehicles in the first place? Answering the first two questions will require you to collect quantitative data during arrival and dismissal times. And to answer the third question, why do they idle their vehicles? You need to collect qualitative data through driver surveys. Data collection templates are also provided in the student guide if you want to use them. And then you move on to analyzing your data. You'll analyze it by collecting the average number of minutes a car idles at your school. This data point will then be used to compare average car idling minutes before and after implementing their plan. We've provided an example data set to provide support, so you can kind of see how someone else might do it, to have that example for you. Using the driver's survey, you will identify the 3 most common reasons drivers give for idling, as well as the top 3 strategies that the drivers believe will reduce car idling. This information will be used during phase 3 as you begin to design a solution.
All right, now comes the fun part. Now that you have done some background research on the problem, you've collected some data, you maybe have an idea of how big a problem this is at your school and some of the reasons why people are idling their vehicles. Now it's time to develop an action plan to solve or mitigate that car idling problem at your school. So again, one of the things that we provided is a case study that describes a similar problem, wood smoke, to give as an example, because there's really no need to reinvent the wheel. So by looking at similar problems that other people have solved, that can help inform your decision-making going forward. So you would want to read the Burn Cleaner, Burn Better case study to help guide your thinking on the car idling problem. Now, this case study focuses on the Maricopa County Air Quality Department's initiative to reduce smoke pollution during the winter months when residents are most likely to burn wood in fireplaces and outdoor fire pits. Analyzing the various strategies that were used to reduce wood smoke, and these include education and communication strategies, technology and/or design improvement, as well as incentives to encourage behavioral change. So those are the 3 main topics that we addressed with our Burn Cleaner, Burn Better campaign. And we did that with education and communication using billboards, signs, flyers, TV and radio ads, social media, on our website. We did a light rail wrap, you can see right here with our mascot, Mr. Gusty Breeze, as well as including this information in the weather reports. For positive behavioral incentives, we had several grant programs. One provided vouchers for residents to retrofit their wood burning fireplaces with a gas log set. And we restricted that to a specific area of town or a geographical location where our air monitoring had shown there were elevated levels of PM 2.5, which comes from wood smoke. So we targeted specific areas that we knew had the biggest problem. And then we also had, and we just finished up this grant program for this year, vouchers that residents anywhere in Maricopa County could take to select Home Depots. And it was a $75 voucher towards the purchase of a propane fire pit, which is a cleaner burning option in that it doesn't produce those fine particulates that are found in wood smoke. And then, of course, we had negative behavioral incentives, which included no burn day warnings and fines. We always try to focus more on the positive. We find people respond to that more than those negative incentives. And we provide a template that reminds you to consider all of these categories: educational, technological, and behavioral strategies as you begin to develop your plan. So now we're going to do a virtual gallery walk on Padlet. We want you to identify strategies in one or more of these categories to help reduce car idling at your school. So you can scan the QR code on the screen to access the discussion board. Or Kelly, if you could post the link in the chat, you can go to the discussion board that way. And so I'm going to pull this up. Kelly, can you see the Padlet now?
Yes, you can. I'm just looking for the link here.
Okay. It's in the notes section of the PowerPoint.
Yep.
So yeah, and I think CSO Aldo, you are already up here because you may not remember, but you attended a workshop on our car idling reduction plan. I think it was in 2021, I want to say it was. Okay, so you're already famous, you're up here. But if you guys could go ahead and pick one or more of these categories and post your ideas. So some ideas from previous workshops include a school newsletter, demonstrating through a 3D diagram the effects on kids' lungs, electric or solar cars. CSO Aldo said make the lanes by grade so that they would move faster. And then also offer kids rewards if their parents don't idle. That way you can get the kids on your side. So and we've got principal's email in communication. And be as creative as you want, think outside of the box. So give you guys a couple of minutes for that. Okay, so a measurement for exactly how much pollutant is emitted per minute and its equivalent. So something you might want to think about right now, EPA has been doing a lot of testing with small, low-cost sensors because our regulatory grade sensors cost anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 to $80,000 a piece. But there are a number of small, low-cost sensors now out on the market that are quite accurate. One of them is called Purple Air. And Purple Air can be installed at a school. It collects data, and it would collect data on ground level ozone and a number of other gases that would be emitted from tailpipes. And then the data is all displayed up on the Purple Air website. We've also taken air beam sensors out to schools. That's another small low-cost particulate sensor. And those run around $250, $300 a piece. And you can collect real air quality data in real time. Again, not something we would use for regulatory purposes, but they are actually quite accurate and convenient for this type of project. So share a calculation of how much money parents could save on gas if they turn off their car in line during pickup. That's so important. I don't know if anyone else noticed, but in the past couple of weeks, gas prices shot up again. And when you're sitting there with your engine turned on, you're using gas and you're going nowhere. They actually say that if you're going to be in line for more than 10 seconds, turn your engine off to save gas and save money because you use about 10 seconds worth of fuel to restart your engine. I think the thinking used to be that you used more fuel turning it on and turning it off, but it's actually now if you're going to be in line for more than 10 seconds, you're going to save money and gas by turning it off and saving the air and the planet. So yeah, so appealing to people with money, you know, pointing out here's how much you can save is a great strategy. I see create posters and street signs, promote parking elsewhere like neighborhoods if it doesn't cause neighbors too many problems. It will force kids to walk, exercise more, so parents will be incentivized. Okay, so providing additional parking conveniently located near the school, and then offer the kids rewards if their parents don't idle. Grade level reward for the fewest parents that had idle cars for the week. So these are all some great ideas. So we'll take another minute to have you guys post your ideas. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just looking, they're really great solutions. I know in the past for design improvement, we've had people take into consideration why people keep their engines on. Think about, you know, how you could keep people cool waiting in line, right? If they're having their engine on because they have that air conditioner going. I know in Phoenix, it gets really, really hot, you know, 120 degrees, you know, in the summer. So thinking of ways you can make design improvements. I won't say any of them just in case it sparks someone's creativity here, but how can we, you know, make improvements that would cause people to not have to keep that engine running and that AC going? What would cause them to maybe turn their engine off? We got another one under technology too.
Okay, have a monitor for the air quality and have it display the quality of the air. Additionally, educate students on the impact of that air quality reward if the students can reach a certain level of air quality for a certain amount of time. And then also create or assign a different place to park. And on the way, the parents can wait for their kids until they come out from school. Yeah. So parking, I'm hearing for a lot of people feel that parking is an issue, and I would agree. I know at the school where I taught, the parking lots filled up pretty quickly. And even though there was a park across the street that had a small parking lot, a lot of times people didn't even want to walk across the street, which when the weather's nice is kind of crazy. All right, and promote other transportation like using the school bus or getting home on bikes.
We had someone bring up a good point in the chat, that at their particular school it gets really cold, in the winter. I'm from Wisconsin, so I know that, people have their engines running too, depending on where you are,
right,
geographically, it might be to keep the heat on as well. So how can we keep people warm versus getting people staying cold? So that was a good point. Yeah, it all depends on where you live. People idle for different reasons. So,
and you may need to look and have different seasonal approaches. So the approach, at least in Arizona or in the Phoenix area, in the Sonoran Desert, maybe the approach in the winter, it's perfectly comfortable to keep your car engine off. You don't generally need a heater all that much, but it becomes more difficult when we get into May or when we're early in September when it's still really hot. So you may need to look at different solutions depending on what the season is. People may be more receptive at different times of year to the car idling message or anti-idling message. All right, so these are all some great ideas, and I think we can also, well, you've got the link to the Padlet, so you're more than welcome at any time to go back and review, or if you come up with other ideas, add if you would like. So I'm going to go back, hopefully, to the PowerPoint. So hopefully that's back up on the screen. And thank you guys for participating. You had some great ideas.
Phase 4 is implementing your solution. Once you have all of those ideas going and you've chosen something that you want to go with, it's time to put your plan into action. During this phase, you're going to implement your solution and address the car idling problem at your school. Something to keep in mind, it's vital to have the community support. You could also identify community and/or business partners. You'd be surprised at how many people are willing to help out with your problem if you propose it to them. Here's what a car idling campaign looked like at David Suzuki Secondary School. So we have an example of somebody implementing a solution. As you watch the video, think about the strategies that were used at the school to reduce car idling, and then we can share ideas.
It's a ritual for parents dropping off the kids, picking them up at school, and school buses, you add those, and you have the recipe for a traffic jam and a lot of exhaust. Our health specialist, Beatrice Politi, of course, is here, and there is now some new information about the link between that exhaust and childhood respiratory disease.
Indeed. Now, exhaust can harm kids developing lungs. So if you're sitting there for longer than 10 seconds, you might as well shut the engine off and save the kids the fumes.
Hi, welcome to David Suzuki.
It's orientation day for grade 9 students at David Suzuki Secondary School in Peel Region. It's also time for parents to get a little schooling when it comes to idling.
If you are going to be here in the afternoon, leave your engines off. We are parents that are concerned about the increase of traffic congestion on school property and the resulting air pollution and effects on kids. A lot of kids have asthma, and the air intake vent sucks in the fumes in the schools. So we're simply asking parents that if they're going to be waiting on school property, make sure you turn off your engine.
The World Health Organization has declared diesel exhaust a carcinogen. Some studies have shown exposure to diesel air pollutants can be 10 times higher for kids who ride school buses than those who walk to school.
Young people actually take in more air per body weight relative to an adult. In addition, their lungs are still developing, so they're more sensitive to the negative impacts associated with idling and the exhaust that comes out of cars.
Kids can experience eye, nose, and throat irritation, headaches, and nausea, and asthma can be exacerbated.
in exhaust, you get products, in particular fine particulate matter, which are small particles that are able to lodge deep in the tissues of the lung. The smaller the particles, the deeper they can go into the lungs. And those are the particles that we're particularly worried about when it comes to idling in vehicles.
Turning that engine off can also save you money.
Canadians waste over $1 billion a year in fuel simply by idling.
That's $200 to $300 a year per driver.
Your engine uses 10 seconds worth of fuel when you start it. So if you know you're going to be parked more than 10 seconds, shut it off.
You can reduce air pollution by turning off your engines. Newer school buses pollute less, and older ones can be retrofitted to do the same.
All right, B, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's a ritual for parents.
Okay.
Okay, well, we hope that our workshop has given you some inspiration, something to think about, a problem you could take on. We, as we mentioned earlier, have a free student project guide or a classroom guide if you want to do this with a group of students, available upon request. And I can also put the link to it in the chat here in a second as well if you want to take a deeper look at it.
And then I also would like to share, and this is a true car idling story that happened to Kelly and I just last weekend, just to kind of give you an example of kind of the scope of the problem. We were at a school out in the west part of the valley. They had a science event, a science festival. I think actually Nova was there, Casey. We did see Nova there, but our particular table was located inside the gymnasium and was right by the door, and the door was propped open so people could come in and out. And so a driver driving a very, very large pickup truck, I think he maybe was a vendor, but he pulled up right by the door of the gymnasium in the driveway and sat there with his car engine on. And so all of those fumes, because of the way the wind patterns, they flowed right into the gymnasium. Of course, we were right by the door. And we had an air monitor on, and we started looking at the data. And actually, I started getting a headache, and I rarely get headaches, and started feeling kind of bad. So, we kind of had two choices. We could just sit there and breathe in all those fumes, or we could go out and say something to the driver. So I went out and said, hey, your fumes from your pickup are coming right into the gymnasium. There's a lot of kids in there. We're in there. Do you mind turning off your car engine or moving your vehicle? So he did move the vehicle. And then we discovered another air pollution source, which was a generator by a food truck. And they had put it so those fumes were coming right into the space we were in. And so we went and asked them, hey, can you move your generator? So we were kind of being like the air quality regulatory force there at that particular event. But what people don't realize, and they don't think about it, is those fumes, when they go into that gymnasium, they're trapped. They're not going to be dispersing anywhere. And if you're sitting there idling, more and more fumes going into that building, the pollution level is going to just get higher and higher, as we could see as we were looking at our monitor. So so we did a little bit of anti-idling advocacy in addition to attending the event last weekend. All right, so we would be more than happy to entertain any questions you might have. Also, I'm going to put our contact information up here if you'd like to take that down. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone's faces or names. And I know we finished up a little bit early, but if you guys have any questions, comments, observations you'd like to share with us, you could also raise your hand and unmute yourself.
Do you guys have any statistics on like how bad idling is for the environment, like specifically maybe how much is emitted or that kind of thing?
Yeah, the Department of Energy has that information up on their website. And off the top of my head, I should probably know it since I'm doing an idling reduction workshop. I can find that information and send it to you, Dahlia. But yeah, they do have like so many pounds, tons of carbon. I mean, it's really unreal. And again, that's how it all relates to climate, is because gasoline is a fossil fuel, and that's what's coming out of the byproducts coming out of the tailpipe of cars. So I will make a note to find that link to the Department of Energy website so I can get that information to you. But Kelly, do you, off the top of your head?
No, I don't have the link off the top of my head.
Okay.
Here, but we can, yeah, I can certainly look for it if one of us is talking or the other, and I'm sure we can find it.
But it's an insane amount
Yeah.
of carbon dioxide that gets emitted just from people idling their engines. And again, you're not going anywhere. You're just sitting there.
Yeah, I think about this too, like when I go, especially if I have my dog with me, like I'll go through the drive-through at the coffee shop instead of going in. And you know, I'll like turn my engine off in between when we move up. And same thing with like the drive-through pharmacy. And it's just wild that like, I don't know, drive-through is such a, I think about it the same way as like the car pickup lines. Like people use drive-throughs all the time. And I imagine the amount of like pollution and like fuel waste is just bananas. Like it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even just the drive-throughs, because sometimes you have your dog, you need to use the drive-through. Or if you are going to pick up a prescription and you're really not feeling well, or you have 3 screaming children in the backseat of the car, which was, I had 3 boys. So like we use drive-throughs. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to drag them all in to the store. So sometimes you need to use a drive-through, but I've been places where I've seen people, like I went to the hair salon one day and there was, I'm assuming it was somebody's husband sitting in his vehicle. The wife was in getting her hair done, which is at least a 30-minute appointment. And he sat there the entire time with his vehicle on, and it wasn't hot outside. It was about what it's like today. And that's completely unnecessary. So I see a lot of examples of people, you know, even when the weather's nice and they're sitting in their vehicles where they could choose to turn it off, and they just don't, they just keep it running.
Yeah, and like you don't, if you want to listen to your music or whatever, like the engine doesn't have to be on. Like there's no reason to have the engine on at that point.
One thing we talk about at our idling meetings quite a bit is we think, you know, communication is such an important piece with this, because a lot of people, they're not doing it to be, you know, terrible environmental destroyer people. They're just, they don't think about it, right? You don't, some people don't even know what the word idling means. You know, I'm idling my engine. What does that mean? You know, so we really think communication is just such a big piece of this, you know, to let people know, hey, did you know you're idling your engine right now? And, you know, I never used to think about that before I worked for the air quality department. It's like, oh, I'm idling my engine. I don't know, you know, so huge.
So I'd love to hear, and you can post in the chat, is this a problem you think you'd like to take on at your school, or has this given you some ideas for other problems that you'd like to take on at your school? Because, you know, if you access the guide, and I see that Kelly put the link in there for it, you can use the templates that we've provided and apply it to any problem. I mean, this is just a problem-based learning project that is focused on idling reduction, but you could take any problem and use the same steps and even use some of the templates, you know, slightly modified for other problems. So I'm just curious if any of you have plans to implement some type of problem-based learning project at your school, or what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking of doing.
Do you want me to report out the chat? You got
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so it's, you know, something people are thinking about looking at their school, talking to school officials about it. I know we've had people ask us in the past, like, who would we talk to, right? Jenny, would it be the principal? Would it be the school board? Would it be the CEO, or not the CEO, you know, would it be the department, the transportation department? You know, who should people go to if they're interested at their school?
Yeah, so I think it depends. If this is a project you want to implement in a specific school, then you want to go to a teacher and go to your building principal or assistant principal. Once you've completed the project, then you might want to see if you can present that to the school board. I was on a school board for Deer Valley for 4 years, and school boards love to see student work and student projects. They really do. So that's a possibility. If you're looking at, you know, you've got parent idling, but don't forget, if there's buses at your school, very often the bus drivers will be idling. I know in the classroom where I taught, it overlooked the bus bay, and the buses would pull up. They'd have to be there 15 to 20 minutes before school was dismissed. And very often they'd be sitting there idling their engines. I know they were doing that because they were loud and they interrupted the last 15 minutes of every science class in the day. So in that case, maybe you want to have a faculty advisor help you approach the transportation department and look at whoever the deputy superintendent of transportation is and see what can we do to reduce bus idling at our school. I mean, those are kind of two, it's all idling, but they're two different audiences. And maybe instead of taking on everybody, you want to focus on just one particular group.
Had to unmute myself, sorry. We got some other answers in the chat.
Okay.
Maybe local businesses with drive-throughs, partnering up with them to put up signage about car idling. I know we've talked about that in our meetings at the air quality department. Drive-throughs, especially slower moving ones. Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you are interested in doing some type of idling reduction program at your school, definitely reach out to us. One of our newest initiatives that we're working on right now, and it's department-wide, is idling reduction. Kelly and I are responsible for the school portion, but we have other colleagues who are looking at drive-throughs and looking at businesses and looking at all those types of things. So we would have flyers, we can put together a toolkit, you know, we can help you with some of the things that you might need to implement your project, and we'd love to. We can even get you probably some press release and some publicity. We love to brag about what's going on in air quality education. So definitely reach out to us, and we would love to help you guys.
Good. We have more ideas about applying it in their schools, seeing the long lines of cars waiting. So great, that's really good to hear. Yep, and like Jenny was saying, you know, I make the newsletters, the social media posts. If you were ever interested in doing this in your school, we can get your name out there and put it on our social media. We would love to have something like that. So great. And I know one neat idea that's been thrown around a little bit is, Jenny, in the warmer climates, providing some sort of shade structure for people if they have their engine on because it's hot, you know, having those awnings or trees or, you know, things to keep people cool while they're waiting in line that might cause them to turn off their engine.
Yeah, I think there was a school outside of Tucson that did a car idling project. It wasn't the one that we developed, but I heard about it from someone that I know in the STEM community, and they determined that it was the heat that was the biggest barrier. That's why people were idling their engines, and so the students implemented shade structures that cars could park under to help mitigate that problem. So there's lots of different solutions, and you can get really creative. And again, we would love to provide support. Kelly and I are both former classroom teachers, and our entire job at Air Quality is to work with teachers and students. So we would love to work with you guys. That's what we get paid to do. So that's not like extra on our own time. That's our specific focus and our job. So we would love to help you guys in any way that we can.
Would you guys be interested in like helping it across countries or across state lines?
So we can provide materials like the project guide. We can provide, like if you wanted like a virtual guest speaker presentation, then we could certainly do that. We can't travel outside of the county in person to a classroom. But we can certainly give guidance from Maricopa County. If you know, you needed funding, we could look and see, we have like a grants administrator, we could look and see if they're aware of any grant programs that your school might be able to apply for. But we can't personally travel to schools outside of the county, other than virtually.
Yeah, definitely. Also, like, would you guys, what would some other ways of maybe like getting the word out about this kind of project be?
So in terms of for students?
In terms of students and maybe even to like parents.
Yeah, so you would probably want to look at what is the preferred method of communication at your school. Like some schools, you put flyers in kids' backpacks and the flyers never make it home. Or at the end of the year, the parents pull out this giant wad of flyers that, they hadn't looked at all year long. So if that's the case, that's probably not the most effective way. We use like a social media platform called Nextdoor, and we've had a lot of good luck with that. If your school has a Facebook page, that's another opportunity. So looking at like social media, looking at the sign outside of your school. So kind of think about what are the most effective methods of communication for your particular community, and then how can you get the message out using those forms of communication. I mean, and
That
social
sounds
media
great,
is
yeah.
huge everywhere.
Yeah. I forgot about like Nextdoor and Facebook, but those would definitely be great platforms for reaching parents.
Yeah, and I think, we've gotten more feedback and more buy-in from Nextdoor than we have even from Facebook. We get more interactivity using Nextdoor. I think some districts use something called Peach Jar to send out announcements and notices to families. I've not personally used Peach Jar, but I know a lot of districts do. And, you could work with, like, almost every district or every large district has a communications team. So work with that team, get a presentation together. Another organization you could look at is your school's parent teacher association, or your parent PTSA, or your PTO. Because if you've got to get the buy-in from the parents, they probably don't understand the damage that they could be doing to student health with idling. So that would be another possible group to educate. Maybe you could present to them and get buy-in from them. And a lot of times, like the PTA at the school where I taught, they were always happy to fund teachers' projects. Like they did bake sales, like they had money. Principal didn't have a lot of money, but the PTO did.
And I was also thinking like student groups at your school, if you have a sustainability group or an environmental group of students, they're always great at coming up with ideas to get the word out in school. They could do school announcements, make signage throughout this, if it's an Earth Day week, or, incorporating it into the whole culture of the school too.
Or if you have a science teacher, get a science or a math teacher, because this is all going to be hitting up their science and math standards. Get them to help you with the project.
Those all sound like great ideas. I think, do you guys have like any other questions or comments you guys want to answer? If not, I think we can start wrapping up for today then. So thank you guys so much for coming here today and sharing this great project guide and great presentation. And I definitely know I'll be looking at it for my own school and my own district and seeing what we can do to help, especially in Georgia where the weather isn't as extreme. I think it would definitely be implementable in our area. So thank you guys so much.
Well, thank you for having us. And even if you're outside of Maricopa County, if you have questions, you need more information, feel free to reach out to us.
Sounds great. And so thank you to all our attendees today for sitting through all these 3 hours of us. And I hope you guys were inspired and can take something back from each of the presentations to your own communities, maybe have some ideas on what you can do to make the small change or take a small action that'll make a big impact on the world. And I hope that everyone enjoyed today's sessions. And if there aren't any last questions or comments, have a nice day, whatever time zone you're in, and enjoy. All right, thank you for attending.